The anime certainly has its moments. I definitely still enjoy Wano because it's been maybe the best arc adapted in a while, but of course with the One Piece anime there are shortcomings, such as pacing and art, direction, score. You know what, I'm not doing such a great job of making you want to watch the anime, but it does have its highs. One of them came in a recent episode, 958, when it gave me an idea about the SSG. But before we continue, just an aside about the SSG. So most people, which are the manga readers, knew what the SSG was. It was a force that would be replacing the 7 warlords of the sea. However, again with translations, it wasn't clear exactly what the SSG meant. So indulge me for a second while I bring up some examples as to why this was the case. And while you wait, please subscribe to this channel for more content like this. Drop a like as well, since that will help me out a lot. And that would motivate me to bring you more videos like this. So, the first mention of the SSG was in chapter 957 when Fujitora stated that the Marines needed to put their trust in the SSG and that the world's balance was about to make a major change. This is of course in direct reference to the established balance of the world via the previous great powers, the Marines, warlords, and the Yonko. All the way back in chapter 69 is when we first hear of the great powers, when Johnny tries to dissuade the crew from entering the Grand Line due to the monsters that ruled it, i.e. the 3 great powers. He then mentioned Mihawk, who made easy work of Zoro, was also one of these Shichibukai, and in true One Piece fashion brought it full circle by mentioning Jinbei, who in return for joining the warlords let a monster loose in the East Blue. This monster happened to be Arlong, to which Luffy drew this famous picture when fishmen were mentioned. I mean, he may have drawn Kaido back then as well, and Sanji certainly got a kick out of that one. One of my favorite moments for sure. But as fascinating as the information was, this exposed the first flaw of this system. They were employing pirates of the seas to be their dogs and do their bidding, and in exchange they could do whatever the heck they wanted to do because they were officially authorized by the world government. The worst part about all this is that as long as the warlords gave a portion of their loot obtained from pillaging, they were officially sanctioned. This obviously reared its head in Arlong Park, but the first crack in the blade took place in Alabasta. The world government, to cover up the defeat of Crocodile, offered promotions to Smoker and Tashigi, to which Smoker kindly told them to eat shit, which was absolutely appropriate as they were the reason why Crocodile was running amok. The rules and regulations that were in place allowed this to happen, and the cost was the lives and possible livelihood of the citizens. But at least the balance is maintained, right? So we all know of the travesty in Dressrosa with Doflamingo and how he retook the country, which in a way he completed what Crocodile was attempting, but Oda did an excellent job of almost tying things together. Most people view Dressrosa as the New World version of Alabasta, where things went the way of the Shichibukai. The Straw Hats were not there to stop the takeover, so the subtle moments in the arc which continued to expose the farce that was the warlord system was perfect. Even Dofi's mention of Law being an up-and-coming warlord and Luffy's terrible ancestry, it hit a bit deeper knowing the context of who they were. The enemy of the gods, the celestial dragons, and Dofi, he was one of them. I think a very subtle and unnoticed trigger of the entire debacle is Doflamingo's and Fujitora's conversation. Now, of course, Fujitora had a conversation with Smoker beforehand, so this was already in motion, and there's some history about Fuji we know nothing about, but it has to be something with these warlords. They may have been the reason why Fujitora took his own eyesight. But back to Dressrosa, Doflamingo in his castle, after being partially exposed as a tyrant of the country, almost goes out of his way to mock Fujitora. Doflamingo says that some idiots had started a ruckus and that it was his job of the Marines to save the countries they were affiliated with. So knowing what we know now about Fujitora, that statement alone was enough to bring down some meteor showers. But he kept his cool. However, this speech is one that should be celebrated and referenced often, as the normally cool and charismatic Doflamingo, he attacked the Navy Admiral. And to be honest, after the words that Fujitora said, it went way past provocation like Dofi did. Fujitora straight up threatened him. This is what Fuji said. "I'm not doing this as a favor to you, you understand. But with the Straw Hat Pirates making trouble and signs of more troublemakers lurking in the shadows, this seemed like the correct move to make. We military forces have a duty to keep civilian casualties to a minimum. If the Straw Hats' goal is to take your head, I doubt they would hesitate to cause large-scale destruction. And if that's what they mean to do, my justice dictates I must stop them. taking care of you can wait till afterwards. I may have been recruited recently through the conscription system, but since I've been granted the position of admiral, I'd like to make good use of that position. I intend to abolish the entire royal Shichibukai institution. He then references Alabasta and threatens Dofi directly again, and this forced Dofi to attack. The words that shook me to my core when I read them again were, "This is the year of the reverie. One way or the other, the balance of the world is going to shift." Fast forward to One Piece chapter 956, we have the abolishment of the warlord system, and then that brings us back to where we started in chapter 957 and the SSG. Just had to give you some background and some context as to how we actually got here. So the SSG, as far as we know, this is the group intended to replace these highly touted warriors, which consisted of the world's greatest swordsmen. But the anime and how it jarred my thinking for the SSG, well, it had to do with the manga as well. In the manga, in the same chapter 957, when Brand New mentions the SSG, he calls them the Special Science Team. It was not until the anime that they specifically called them the Special Science Group that something clicked. Now, this in a vacuum is not much different and essentially mean the same thing, but the use of group, in my opinion, changed how I viewed the purpose and the look of the SSG. I'll explain. So when I first heard of the SSG, I'd always imagined it to be the better version of the Pacifista. Maybe some sea stone, upgraded weaponry, some new devil fruit projectiles. But when you consider what the world government is losing, it has to be something a bit more reliable and maybe more specific. This led me to the idea of genetically modified humans or individuals. But as we know, this is not something that's new to One Piece. We saw the use of the lineage factor in Whole Cake Island, and the way it was introduced, then to ultimately end in failure due to the entire fiesta in Whole Cake Island, it feels a bit incomplete. And just as a refresher, this was discovered by Vegapunk and Judge, but Vegapunk and his creations always seems to be better than everyone else. From Caesar to Judge, he's just better. So looking at how powerful the Vinsmoke brothers happen to be, but they were reared as kids, what about Vegapunk's creations? What if he actually took some soldiers and genetically modified them? Yes, I know, the lineage factor is something that the kids had to be born with. But again, Vegapunk seems to always be better. I don't think it's crazy that he could do something like this. But when I think of this project, I was always skeptical of the notion because the main candidate for this project in my mind was always Smoker. But I thought, there's no way Smoker would do something like this based on what we know about him. He wants justice, but is that at any cost? Well, that's my headcanon. Because I never thought Sanji would bring his mind around to using the raid suit. So then I thought, well, why not Smoker? Not necessarily a raid suit, but genetically engineered. So in Alabasta, Smoker said this to Tashigi: "You think you're dealing with run-of-the-mill pirates, then they do something out of the ordinary. Well, on the seas, it's either shape up or ship out, grow strong or perish. A soldier does not cry over something like this. You gotta get stronger." This shows me that Smoker understands how important strength is, and it was on full display that the worst generation were not run-of-the-mill pirates, especially after the time skip in Punk Hazard. Smoker seemed to be lacking in comparison to these individuals, like lacking seriously. And Smoker specifically said, grow strong or perish. And Tashigi was moved by this speech, as well as Hina, to a lesser degree. But then this takes us back to the last time we see Smoker and Tashigi. They were on their way to Vegapunk with the kids. Of course, after Law cured them a bit, they were taking them to Vegapunk. And they were also reading the news of what Fujitora had done. Tashigi even said that Punk Hazard reminded them of their frustration in Alabasta, and that Fujitora did what they could not do. So with this frustration, headed over to Vegapunk, because the timeline makes sense. If Smoke is presented with the opportunity to right the wrong that he couldn't 2 years ago by becoming one of the members of the group that would directly replace the warlords, while leading to its abolishment and getting an immediate power boost, do we think Smoker would say no? I think Smoker is one of the new members of the SSG, along with Tashigi, and I'm throwing Hina in there as well. I predict there will be about 7 to 10 members who have been artificially enhanced with PXs under their control. The other members, I don't know, I just predict one to be a giant, since giants are cool. But at this point, this is my headcanon until it isn't. If the story proves me wrong, so be it. But as of right now, that's what I believe the SSG to be. But guys, give me your thoughts. What do you expect from the SSG? Is it just stronger pacifista? Or could we get something a bit more creative? Like a bunch of super soldiers. I think that would be really, really cool. Especially if Smoker is involved. But yeah guys, give me your thoughts. Make sure to like the video if you did. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Follow me on Twitter at BragoDAce. Follow me on Instagram at BragoD.Ace. Thank you to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Guys, be sure to like and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
day I start doubting me, I felt lost.